Namaste friends, Hari Om. Welcome to the third part of the series on the destruction of the temple of Serapis. This part will be less about the temple of Serapis and more about some related but interesting issues. And I have received a couple of requests that I feature some particular topics in this video, so I will honor them as well. So let's have a look where we left off last time. So last time we saw what was the effect of the rule of Emperor Constantine on generally Sanatana Dharma in the Roman Empire. So Constantine died in 337, and after there was a brief power struggle again as usual. And by the time the situation stabilized, two of his sons, Constantius II, Constantius II, and Constans, they took over power. So Constantius held the eastern part of the Roman Empire, and Constans held the western part of the Roman Empire. And both of these, they continued what their father had started with greater vigor. So temples by this time had fallen into not ruin but pretty bad shape because state funds were cut off and the funding was diverted to churches. The priests were dismissed, the puja rituals and yajnas and sacrifices were prohibited and so on. So they were already in a very bad shape. And Constans and Constantius continued this process. So Constantius is more relevant to us because Constans was assassinated around the year 350. So after the year 350, Constantius became the sole emperor of the Roman Empire, like his father Constantine before. So he ruled till 361, and he has been described as a strange, twisted character, and he had committed murders of his relations as well, including the future Emperor Julian's parents and his brother, Julian's brother. And John Holland Smith describes him as a man under the influence of the bishops, the eunuchs or the hijras, and the women of his court. But Libanius, the Roman scholar, says that both Constans and Constantius were both under the influence of bishops, because what had happened was from their very childhood they were given to the bishops who acted as their tutors, mentors, uh, role models, and so on. So they were very hardcore Christians, and Constance has the infamy or the credit of being the first emperor to actually declare Sanatana Dharma, or what was Roman Dharma, as illegal. So his edict went, let superstition end and this unsoundness of thinking be abolished. So obviously whoever was following Sanatana Dharma was mentally unsound. Only Christians were mentally sound. Whoever dares to have sacrifices celebrated, so whoever performs yajnas and pujas contrary to the laws of the divine prince, our father, so that's Jesus, and to this command of our clemency shall be justly punished on that ground alone. So if you do pujas, if you go to temples, if you do yajnas and rituals or sacrifices, then you are liable for punishment. And these laws became more stringent as the years went on. And we see an example of such law towards the end of this presentation. So this presentation is going to kind of go a bit long, like the other presentations. I had planned it to be a bit shorter, but that's how kind of things turn out. This is just a map. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So this is a map of the Roman Empire. So you can freeze this because I downloaded this from site called Omni Atlas, and it has got details of different battles. So if you want to look at the dates, etc. But what is relevant for our purposes right now is to understand that this part, which is really Turkey, large parts of Egypt and North Africa, were part of the Eastern Roman Empire under Constantius II. And this part pretty much from Italy, Spain, parts of North Africa, Gaul, Britain, uh, and parts of Germany were part of the Western Roman Empire under Constans. So this was the position until 350, and like I said, Constans was assassinated, and Constantius kind of became the sole emperor after taking over that part of the empire. So Constans was assassinated by actually uh, Roman general called Magnentius, who was a follower of Sanatana Dharma and who tried to restore Sanatana Dharma in the western part of the Roman Empire, so Italy, France, and that portion. But unfortunately, he was defeated by Constantius II, and in that way, Constantius kind of became ruler of the whole empire. So today's slides will be a little bit about detours. So we'll be taking a couple of detours. So the next slide is a little bit different. So I won't be going through the usual edicts and what happened and what didn't happen. So this is another famous temple uh, of the god Asclepius. So Asclepius was the god of healing, god of medicine, and his main temple or the temple complex was in Greece in a place called Epidaurus. So this is the modern map of Greece. Here you can see there's Athens, and this part is Epidaurus. So there's a big temple complex, and I'll be touching on this in more detail. So I'll make a detailed presentation on the Epidaurus complex. But for here, I'll be just very briefly touching on this one. So Asclepius and his temples were pretty much like hospitals or Ayurvedic healing complexes, more accurately. So a combination of mystical and actual medicine was done to heal people. And there were around 200 temples all across the Roman Empire, in Greece, Egypt, and so on. But the main headquarters or the mother temple was in Epidaurus. And this was considered to be the birthplace of Asclepius. And if you think about temple complexes in South India, which still survive, so you got huge temples, you got tanks, they used to have hospitals, schools, Vedshalas, Pathshalas. They used to provide free service to the community till the British and the independent governments of India destroyed. Um, and Epidaurus, the temple complex of Epidaurus was known as Asclepion, just like the Serapeum or Serapeum. And this was considered the cradle of the art of medicine in the Roman Empire. So people from all across the Roman Empire used to come to Epidaurus to get healed. And the next slide I will show you, a 3D imaging of how the complex used to look like. So this is a kind of a 3D portrait, and this round building here is what is known as the Abton. So Abton is a very interesting place. So this is where patients spend the night. So whatever ailment they had, whether it was a serious ailment or a minor ailment, they spent a night there and they had some kind of a mystical experience with the devata Asclepius, who healed them. And there are many inscriptions which say, I came to Asclepion with this ailment and I spent the night there and I got healed. So typically exactly like India, and people would kind of give a grant or a donation based on that. And these were places of hope and reassurance for the people. And the priests or the pujaris used to guide them through this. And this was also combined with, different, Ayurvedic or, traditional healing um, medicine and practices in the entire temple complex. So you can see there are many different buildings, and this 3D, kind of imagination, it doesn't properly capture the size. So just to understand how big this complex was, so this complex also had a theater. Now this theater had a capacity of around 13 to 14,000 people, so massive. And from the online description, it seems that even the smallest sounds in the orchestra could be heard in the uppermost rows. So what I'll do is I'll go through the archaeological reports and make a more detailed presentation on this one, because even my knowledge is very shallow of this one. So today is a day of detours. So coming back to another related topic, and this is where Hindus in this day and age kind of get tied up in knots and have arguments. Are we Hinduism a religion, or are we Sanatana Dharma a way of life. So I'm not going to get into that argument. I'm just going to focus on the word religion. Okay. So in this slide, obviously, I've portrayed. So this is Moses, the prophet of Judaism, which can be considered the start of Abrahamic religions. Then you've got Jesus, and you've got the Kaaba, which is representative of Muhammad. So you've got three major Abrahamic religions, and they are not equal to Sanatan Dharma or Hinduism. So I've just put Lord Mahakal Nataraja as an example, but we could have any devata or any number of devatas over there. One of the reasons is, see, the ancient Romans, the followers of Sanatana Dharma, did not recognize themselves as following any religion. Okay, so what I found very interesting is that the word religion has the root in the Latin word religio. I think that's how it's pronounced, and this had a negative connotation. So it really means to bind or to hold back. So it's like you're tied with some kind of an imaginary restraint, like an imaginary belt or something. And religious actions were really defined as, in a very limited context, as something you would do um, to feel safe in a certain time of the year or in important event like some occasion in the family and so on. So much like us, the Roman dharmics did not see themselves as any kind of organized religion, and this caused no end of frustration to the early Christians, because all Abrahamic religions work on a binary arrangement. So it's black or white. So it's good or bad. So it's a very kind of binary arrangement. So if you are a Christian, you are good. If you are anything else, you automatically become bad. So they have to put you in some kind of a box. But if, and that box needs a label, because without the label you don't know what's in the box. And if we don't use a label for ourselves, it becomes very difficult for them. Once they label it, put it in a box, it's much easier to deal and destroy. And this is why they also labeled the Roman dharmics, followers of Sanatana Dharma in Rome, as pagan. It's a very derogatory word. It means someone who is a coward or a village bumpkin or something like that, because they saw themselves as soldiers of Christ, uh, not real soldiers, but soldiers of Christ. So just like the missionaries describe themselves today. And anybody else who was not a follower of Christianity or organized religion was given the name pagan, so a coward basically. So they weren't brave enough to fight for Christ. Now, my view on the umbrella term Hindu or Hinduism is that it offers a good defense in the short term, and it will eventually fall out of use when it no longer has any utility. That's the beauty of Sanatan Dharma. So, touching on another topic, so another issue I wanted to touch on is, uh, we as Hindus can't comprehend the Abrahamic, so the Muslim and Christian resistance to the concept of the motherland as a goddess. So, if we are told that Bharat Mata is a goddess, or we find it very easy to worship, you know, Bharat as a goddess, and we don't understand why there is a lot of opposition. So here's a new snippet, I think quite recent from a couple of months back, where one Samajwadi Party MLA, he opposed, saying we can't sing Vande Mataram, which is in praise of Mother India or Bharat Mata, and this caused some controversy. But this is the normal Abrahamic view. And John Holland Smith very perceptively remarks in his book, quote unquote, that the Christians were already making a distinction which pagans could not make between loyalty to the state and loyalty to its gods. So they already saw these things as two separate aspects. So the state was essentially a political structure. So loyalty to the political structure did not mean you had to be loyalty or be devoted to the gods. So you could actually break the temples, you could do anything as long as you were loyal to the state. Because their loyalty was actually commanded by the church, which was above the political structure. Okay. So loyalty to the church actually came first, then loyalty to the state, and obviously there was no loyalty to the gods. Now, to the Roman people who followed Sanatana Dharma, this was incomprehensible, because for them the two loyalties, loyalty to the devatas and loyalty to the state were one and the same thing. So if you were loyal to the devatas, you would be loyal to the state. And if you are loyal to the state, you had to be loyal to the devatas. These were not two different things. Just like in modern day Bharat, where Hindus don't distinguish, they don't think as two separate things. So if somebody creates a temple to Bharat Mata, they will also go and worship there. And this is a very important point for us to understand, and which is why sometimes people get surprised that even say some Christian officers who had served in the armed forces or in the police forces, they had done good service. After retirement, they suddenly come out and start commenting on different things, and you think that uh, this person would have been very loyalty or would have displayed a lot of loyalty to Bharat or India in his career, and why is he talking like this now? So this is the explanation, because they very clearly distinguish, and this has been there from very early times for all Abrahamic religions. And here's an example from the present when I keep talking about different edicts and laws that the Roman emperors passed. So this is from Maharashtra. I think this bill is still hanging fire. There are a lot of objections, rightly so, to this bill. So it's kind of a lame duck thing. People keep trying to push it through. Um, and this was kind of really demanded by a group known as rationalists. So rationalists is a very strange tribe. So according to them, everything irrational is only with Hindu Dharma or Sanatana Dharma, and Islam, Christianity, etc. These are the most rational things on the planet. So the rationality is a one-way street, very typical, like what was happening in the Roman Empire in the third and fourth centuries. And next example of from Andhra Pradesh. So I've called it wolves to guard the treasure. So before I just kind of talk about this, give a contrast from the Roman Empire. So by 330s, as temples were being reduced to ruins, another step taken was to appoint Christians as guards and managers of the temples. So it's exactly like wolves to guard the treasure. And this is a snippet from Andhra Pradesh, where I'm not sure if this is true or not, but it seems to be the accepted opinion that this gentleman, he's an MLA from Tirupati. He's a crypto Christian or a converted Christian, and a relation to the present Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, which is YSR Jagan. And he has been appointed as the chief of Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanams, or TTD, which is the government body which looks after Tirupati and the Tirumala temple, which is why the whole thing is in a complete mess. And this is also the kind of slow poisoning of the administrative system of temples by inducting Christians at all levels. So right from the sweeper level to the security guard to the managing, chairman. And this is the same template what was used in the Roman Empire by the Christian emperors. This led to bishops looting the temple treasures, and this has been happening in Hindu temples where lakhs of acres of temple land have been sold off illegally. Lot of temple jewels of the devatas have been secretly auctioned. So there are quite a few jewels from Tirupati which are missing, and prominent pujari of Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanams had actually gone public, but it was saying that some of the jewelry given by the Vijayanagar emperors, especially Krishna Dev Raya, to the Lord Venkateshwar Swami, had gone missing. But it was all hushed up after some time. So again, that being Bharat, we have no idea what really happened after that. Okay, so this is the last slide of the day, so I won't bore you by reading through the slide. But this is a joint edict by Constans and Constantius II from the year 346. Now, both the brothers worked in very good coordination with each other, especially were ruling the empire and formulating laws against Sanatana Dharma was concerned. So priesthoods were officially declared dissolved. So hereditary pujaris or the hereditary line of pujaris was ended, and you can see that happening in temples in Tamil Nadu as well, where I think the government brought in a law saying hereditary priests can't be priests anymore. So any X, Y, Z, Tom, Dick, and Harry can become the priest. So temples were deserted in towns, and the bishops, I pointed this out in the last part itself. In Constantine's time, they were pretty much given magisterial powers. So they became like the district magistrates or collectors of modern day Bharat. And in their self-appointed roles, they raised local militia or small local armies of fanatic Christian followers who would go around, destroy these temples, beat up the pujaris, kill them, do all these kinds of stuff. And I just read the highlighted portion. So this edict says that temples should be instantly be closed, and everybody should abstain from sacrifices. So all yajna rituals, everything has to stop instantly. And if anybody does this, he should be killed. Let him fall by the avenging sword. And once they were killed or murdered, all their property would go to the state. Okay, so the state would take over the property. And obviously, if the governors didn't stop this, then they would be responsible for this. So even if people were sympathetic at the higher level, they would just do as the emperors had told or as the government had told out of fear, because they would have to suffer. So that's the last slide for this part. In the next part, we will learn about Julian the Great. And he was truly the great because he was the only person in history who came literally within 2 years close to reversing the spread of Christianity. And thank you for watching this video. Please remember to share, subscribe, and like. And I will see you next time. Thank you.